Welcome and welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. Today is Wednesday, March 12th, 2025, 10 a.m. Central, in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And today we're going to take a look at the first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide section on the monster as a player character. You know, this got addressed in original D&D briefly in a very short section, and I don't have the clip here, but I was just thinking how germane that was to a few things. They said, well, and I'm going to paraphrase here, which is always dangerous, but I live for danger. The original Dungeons and Dragons booklet said, if somebody wants to play a red dragon, just let them play a red dragon. Just remember to start them off as a tiny red dragon and let them grow and become a bigger red dragon. And anybody who wants to say that there wasn't any thought to balance in original Dungeons and Dragons or in early Dungeons and Dragons, just look right there. They were talking about the need to scale, because it's a dragon, to scale a player character if somebody wanted to play a red dragon as a player character. Scale it up, so, at least the character would be balanced with the rest of the party, whoever they were, and balanced for the sake of the game and the progression of the game to, conceivably start off player characters as low-level characters and raise them up into higher-level characters over time. So, when people give you those balance arguments, hey, I'm wearing a beholder shirt. If people give you those balance arguments, you can just point right to original D&D's little part on if a player wants to play a red dragon. Because right there it tells you everything you need to know about balance between the players, balance between the player characters and the setting or the game, the campaign game that you're running, so on and so forth. Anyway, this is a big section in the DMG, by the way. So I think what we need to do, where am I at? Let's get rid of that. Let's throw that up there. The monster as a player character. This is a pretty big wall of text for a quick show. And we're already a few minutes in. Let's power through. Let's see what we can do with this, right? Check it out here. The monster is a player character. On occasion, one player or another will evidence a strong desire to operate as a monster, conceiving a playable character as a strong demon, a devil, a dragon, or one of the most powerful sort of undead creatures. This is done principally because the player sees the desired monster character as superior to his or her peers and likely to provide a dominant role for him or her in the campaign. A moment of reflection will bring them to the unalterable conclusion that the game is heavily weighted towards mankind. Now, I'm going to make a quick comment here and say that a lot of what we see sprinkled throughout the Dungeon Master's Guide are little quips by Gary talking about how the player is trying to get up over on the other players or get over on the DM. And I think some of that is a reflection of Gary having been the primary DM for multiple campaigns for all of the years since the game was first brought to his attention by Dave Arneson in its nascent form, and how after he first played it, to show it to everybody else, as well as to play test certain rules from original D&D into the first edition Dungeons and Dragons that it became, that, he was clearly when he wrote a lot of the Dungeon Master's Guide, first edition, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, he was a bit beleaguered, to put it in the most generous of terms. So when you hear and read these little clips, these little quips of him, principally because the player sees the desired monster character as superior to his or her peers. This is his motivation. Then you know that Gary was put upon pretty good. Anyway, to continue, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is unquestionably humanocentric, with demi-humans, semi-humans, and humanoids in various orbits around the sun of humanity. Men are the worst monsters, particularly, geez, Gary, you know, okay, men are the worst monsters, and it's true in real life too. Particularly high-level characters such as clerics, fighters, and magic users, whether singly, in small groups, or in large companies. This is true, right? The ultra-powerful beings of other planes are more fearsome. The 3Ds of demigods, demons, and devils are enough to strike fear into most characters, let alone when the very gods themselves are brought into consideration. Yet there is a point where the well-equipped, high-level party of adventurers can challenge a demon, prince, or archdevil, or a demigod. While there might be some near or part humans with the group, so doing, it is certain that the leaders will be human. In cooperation, men bring ruin upon monsterdom, for they have no upper limits to their level or acquire power from spells or items. And it's all true. And no, he wasn't just because he was in Wisconsin referring to Ed Gein or Jeffrey Dahmer when he said men are the worst monsters. He was speaking metaphorically about how they rule the world with chaos sometimes and with callousness, I am sure. So, yeah, you know, the unrestricted access to the higher levels of power within the game are certainly what make humans in early Dungeons and Dragons the preferred character race to play, for sure. It goes on. The game features humankind for a reason. It is the most logical basis in an illogical game. From a design aspect, it provides the sound groundwork. From a standpoint of creating the campaign milieu, it provides the most readily usable assumptions. From a participation approach, it is the only method for all players are, after all, is said and done, human, and it allows them the role with which most are most desirous and capable of identifying with. From all views, then, it is enough fantasy to assume a swords and sorcery cosmos with impossible professions and make-believe magic. To adventure amongst the weird is fantasy enough without becoming that too. Consider also that each and every dungeon master worthy of that title is continually at work expanding his or her campaign milieu. The game is not merely a meaningless dungeon and an urban base around which is plopped the dreaded wilderness. Each of you must design a world, piece by piece, as if a jigsaw puzzle were being handcrafted, and each new section must fit perfectly the pattern of the other pieces. Faced with such a task, all of us need all of the aid and assistance we can get. Without such help, the sheer magnitude of the task would force most of us to throw up our hands in despair. Well, that's true enough. Let's power on. Oh, wall of text! By having a basis to work from and a well-developed body of work to draw upon, at least part of the task is handled for us. When history, folklore, myth, fable, and fiction can be incorporated or used as reference for the campaign, the magnitude of the effort required is reduced by several degrees. Even actual sciences can be used: geography, chemistry, physics, and so forth. Alien viewpoints can be found, of course, but not in quantity, and often not in much quality either, he says parenthetically. Those works which do not feature mankind in a central role are uncommon. Those which do not deal with men and all at all are scarce indeed. To attempt to utilize any such bases as the central, let alone sole theme for a campaign milieu is destined to be shallow, incomplete, and totally unsatisfying for all parties concerned unless the creator is a Renaissance man, an all-around universal genius with a decade or two to prepare the game and milieu. And even then, how can such an effort rival one which borrows from the talents of genius and imaginative thinking which come to us from literature? Having established the why of the humanocentric basis of the game, you will certainly see the impossibility of any lasting success for a monster player character. The environment for adventuring will be built around humans and demi-humans for the most part. Similarly, the majority of character which will lurk. Similarly, the majority of participants in the campaign will be human. So unless the player desires a character which will lurk alone somewhere and be hunted by adventurers, there are only a few options open to him or her. A gold dragon can assume human shape, so that is a common choice for monster characters. If alignment is stressed, this might discourage the would-be gold dragon. If it is also pointed out that he or she must begin at the lowest possible value, and only time and the accumulation and retention of great masses of wealth allow any increase in level, parentheses, age, close parentheses, the idea should be properly squelched. If even that fails, point out that the natural bent of dragons is certainly for their own kind, if not absolute solitude. So what part could a solitary dragon play in a group participation game made up of non-dragons? Dragon non-player characters? Yes. As player characters, not likely at all. A group participation game. Let me stress that, because that's a point he just throws out there as being something we all should know, right? He doesn't say it as if it's a newfound revelation. But, I mean, look at all of this text looking to try to discourage people from playing monsters as non-player characters. Well, it's not over. One last little section here. It says, as to other sorts of monsters as player characters, you as DM must decide in the light of your aims and the style of your campaign. The considered opinion of this writer is that such characters are not beneficial to the game and should be excluded. Note that exclusion is best handled by restriction and not by refusal. Enumeration of the limits and drawbacks which are dependent upon the monster character will always be sufficient to steer the intelligent player away from the monster approach. For in those cases, it was only thought of as a likely manner of game domination. The truly experimental type player might be allowed to play such a monster character for a time so as to satisfy curiosity, and it can then be moved to non-player character status and still be an interesting part of the campaign. And the player is most likely to desire to drop the monster character once he or she has examined its potential and played that role for a time. The less intelligent players who demand to play monster characters regardless of obvious consequences will soon remove themselves from play in any event, for their own ineptness will serve to have players or monsters or traps finish them off. Oh, Gary, you really were pressed upon quite a bit in those early years as you tried to bang out these rules. I feel for you, brother. He finishes up with this. So you are virtually on your own with regard to monsters as player characters. You have advice as to why they are not featured, why no details of monster character classes are given herein. The rest is up to you, for when all is said and done, it is your world. and your players must live in it with their characters. Be good to yourself as well as them, and everyone concerned will benefit from a well-conceived, well-ordered, fairly judged campaign built upon the best of imaginative and creative thinking. You know, he ain't wrong, they said about Gary in the end. He's got a point. And you know what? I think we've made our point for the day, and I think we can get back out of this video without hitting 20 minutes. So I want to thank everybody for powering through a pretty big chunk of text in a very short time, and with only a bit of commentary, and I think it was the important commentary in any event. So there you go. We've been talking about the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master Guide section on the monster as a player character. And don't forget, the show streams live on Twitch each Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central, and then it's archived on YouTube. Like, subscribe, follow, all of that cool stuff. Make sure to spread the word about this, too. I'd very much appreciate it. I'm looking at trying to increase subscribership on YouTube, so share the link for the video with people. Tell them what it's all about, how much fun it is, how interesting it is if they're already into first edition, how useful it might be for them. And help me make more videos like this one by becoming a supporter over on Patreon for me. There is a free level, and it just lets me know that you're out there and you're listening and you're watching and you're enjoying other luminaries like Tom Tullis of Fat Dragon Games, Color Slicing of Castle Entertainment, Heath Varnett of the AD&D 20, Dave O'Brien, Heidi and Eric Gygax Garland of Gaxland, Vince Ragusca of the Maroon Room, an excellent prog rock band, unauthorized user, Daniel Caldwell of Griffin and Gargoyle fame, and as always, Shane Bradley, DM Extraordinaire. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.